The story begins with a scientific expedition to one of the most remote parts of Siberia. The expedition's goal is to investigate a mysterious phenomenon known locally as the Chasm of Silence. The place is not only isolated, it is completely inaccessible to any communications, and a strange, inexplicable force seems to absorb all signals. The locals, warned of possible dangers, avoid it, convinced that it is cursed. The expedition includes 5 researchers: biologist Dr. Sarah Gray, geologist Michael Lang, physicist David Mason, linguist Anna Pierce, and expedition coordinator Oliver Hart. They are determined to unravel the mystery of the chasm, despite the warnings of the locals. The first strange sign is the behavior of the compass and GPS devices. Their needles spin erratically, as if under the influence of a powerful magnetic field, although there are no sources nearby that could cause such a phenomenon. Arriving at the edge of the abyss, they see a huge, completely lifeless crater filled with thick, dark fog. Each of them feels a strange heaviness, as if the place itself is pulling them down toward the center. Sarah notes the complete lack of vegetation around, and Michael notices the unusual structure of the rocks, which seem to have been subjected to incredible pressure. At first glance, this place resembles a trace of an ancient cataclysm. The next day, the expedition decides to descend to the bottom of the abyss, despite internal concerns. As they descend, they begin to notice increasingly strange phenomena. Step by step, the feeling of silence around them intensifies. Birds and small animals disappear, and even a whisper seems muffled, as if the sound simply dissolves in the surrounding air. After a while, they find strange ruins, half-destroyed columns and stone blocks with incomprehensible symbols, clearly created by a human or non-human hand. Anna assumes that the inscriptions belong to an unknown language, and with the help of equipment begins to take notes and photographs for further study. On the 3rd day of the expedition, Michael disappears. All the team members search for him everywhere, but in his place they find only his equipment, left at one of the entrances to the cave, which, according to their data, should lead even deeper into the abyss. Oliver decides not to abandon the search, despite the obvious risk. Having descended into the cave, the remaining team members discover that the insides of the abyss seem to have no end. The walls of the cave are covered with countless strange symbols and drawings. Deep inside the cave, they find Michael. His body is lying in a strange position. His eyes are open and directed into the void, but his gaze is completely empty, and around him are traces that, according to Sarah, indicate a brutal struggle. He does not answer questions and shows no signs of life at all. Even stranger is the fact that in his pocket lies a small figurine carved from stone, resembling a heart, but at the same time distorted into something dark and ominous. Dr. Gray and David decide to investigate the figurine, surmising that it is part of the ancient culture that left the ruins. The figurine seems to draw them in. Its surface is warm to the touch and seems to pulsate under their fingers. Soon, Sarah begins to experience strange visions. Ancient beings standing in a circle perform a ritual, sacrificing their voices and memories in order to gain some kind of terrible power. The following days turn into an ordeal on the edge of reality and madness. The team plunges deeper into the abyss, feeling how their minds and perceptions become increasingly blurred. They find themselves forgetting names, starting to talk to themselves, seeing images of long-dead people and forgotten cities that seem to call them to themselves. Each of them begins to have visions in which they appear before ancient beings standing around an unimaginable dark altar. On the final level of the chasm, they are met by a mysterious cavern, in the center of which is a giant statue with empty eyes, and in front of it is an eerie altar covered in symbols carved into the stone, reminiscent of rituals and spells. They realize that the altar is the site of the final sacrifice, and that each of them is now part of some ancient rite. One by one, they disappear, remaining in the emptiness of the chasm. Oliver, the last of the team, finally realizes that the Chasm of Silence is not just a geological formation, but a gateway to something ancient, an ancient consciousness that lives in silence and emptiness. Before dissolving into this silence, he sees strange creatures stretching out their hands to him, ready to take him into eternal darkness.